Your viewers or listeners, I give them an opportunity to take a look at it because there's some patterns that you can make some simple patterns and change your whole life of focus. So the first one is, and I'd ask you two questions for you. One, Chris, is what do you think most people's answer to this question is? And the other is what's yours, if you're ready to play. All right? It's real simple. We all have a pattern of focusing on what we have and at times on what's missing. Which one do you think most people spend more time focusing on, what they have or what's missing?
What's missing?
What do you focus more on?
What's missing?
Yes. It isn't something that comes, the focus on what's missing is not something that comes with someone who is a failure. It comes very much with people who are very successful. And the question then becomes, if you're always focused on missing, how can you sustain happiness?
You're in a permanent place of lack.
That's correct. So scarcity is there. So you'll have drive, right, to keep staying on the hamster wheel of achievement, but you're not going to see much fulfillment, not in a sustainable way. It's impossible. And it has nothing to do with you or me, right? It's just software. And we got a soul. We're not software, but you run your software so often, you start thinking your mind is you versus my mind is a tool that I'm going to use. Or if I don't use it, it's going to use me. So the majority of people do that. And by the way, during COVID, that number exploded because so many things were taken from people. They were constantly focused on what's missing, and that produces nothing but pain. Second question, and I think I know your answer to this one. Which do you tend to focus on more? Which do you think most people focus on more, what they can control or what they can't control? And then which one do you focus more on?
I think most people would probably focus on what they can't control. I'm an even balance, I would say, between the two. I'm
That's
working
good.
quite hard to try.
I was going to say you strive. It's part of your philosophy, right? To focus on what you can control, right? So that's part of the Stoicism, whole philosophy of Stoicism, right? So, but most people, you're absolutely right. Now, in my seminars, it's different because I got 15, 20,000 people ask that question, and the vast majority of them say they're focused on what's missing, but the vast majority of them say they do focus on what they can control. That's why they came. Mm-hmm. Why would they spend their money and time? They want to take control of their business or their body or their relationship, whatever the case may be. So they have a different belief structure. If you have both of those out of whack, you got some real challenges. Most people have at least one out of whack, which creates stress. And then the third one, and there's many more than these, but just quickie for the people at home, and I'm asking them to do this for themselves if they want to. Where do you tend to focus more? Your past, your present, or your future? We all spend all three, but where do you spend more of your time? Where do you think most people do? Where do you?
I guess most people just not the present, perhaps dreams for the future. For me, I would say mostly in the future as well.
Yeah, and that's where most achievers live. Me too. I have to discipline myself not to do that because what makes you an achiever is anticipation. You've learned by a long time, anticipation is power. As I'm listening, I'm watching you, you're anticipating, you're processing, right?
Dopamine's a hell of a drug, yeah.
Yes, it does. And it gives you a sense of control. So it's addictive when you learn to anticipate. And it's also a great skill set for business, for life, and so forth. I always tell people, you're running a business, you're always running two businesses, the business you're in and the business you're becoming. If you only focus on the business you're in, someone's going to replace you. If you only focus on what you're going to become, you're going to have the cash flow to be able to get to that place, right? So it's a very similar situation inside of where we are. So for each of us, most of us who are achievers tend to focus on the future, but all the joy is in the present, right? You can have some anticipation in the future and be excited about it. Most people's stress comes from either the past or the future. The majority of people spend a lot of time in the past, right? And the problem is you can't change it. And you can use it as a reference to me, and maybe for you, I don't know, I might project. You've probably come a long way in your life is my guess. So the contrast of remembering where you were and who you've become is probably a beautiful thing. But if you use it that way, but most people go back and they ruminate about the past, or they ruminate about a future that they can't control and the present's there. So the goal is, an ideal is fuel. An ideal fuel is a combination of the two. Present that gives you that centered grounding, and anticipation for the future, the ability to bounce back and forth, is the ideal for people. So I'll give you an example to wrap this up. Do you know anybody who has, I ask this when I have an audience, giant audience, how many of you, I'll say, know somebody who takes antidepressants and they're still depressed?
Yes.
Yes. 90% of the room will raise their hand. How's that possible? Because first of all, 2 years ago, they did meta studies on the cover of Newsweek, and it said SSRIs do not work. Sugar pills work as well as SSRIs.
Dancing to music was more effective by some huge margin.
Yeah, you read the study.
Yeah.
We're still giving them to everybody. Doesn't make any sense.
Should be salsa classes.
It's just, but it's just, you think of the insanity of that, of us continue to do what doesn't make any sense. So I think, your question is really focus, bringing it back to the focus. I think if we make the right decisions, the first one is what we're going to focus on, and that's just a habit. You change anything. Take that person. Why is that person depressed still? Because all that drug does is numb you. Mm-hmm. And numbing doesn't deal with the issue. What's the real issue? You're constantly focused on what's missing versus what you have. You're focused on what you can't control. And there's two worlds, right? The external world, the internal world. We can't control the external world. We can influence it. We can't control it. If you think you're in control, you have a deep illusion. I went to Mexico recently. You and I were talking off the air, and I discovered I couldn't even fully control my bowels. It's not something I want to talk about, but it's like all the willpower in the world doesn't mean squat, no pun intended, right? So it's the part we can control is what's going on inside of us. And that we can control what we focus on. We can control the meaning. We can decide the meaning. We're the meaning makers, and we can decide what to do. And when we make those three decisions, we're in control of our life, and all the anxiety and bullshit tends to go away, especially if we're trying to do that to serve something more than ourselves. Not like you're so unselfish you're not going to succeed, because you can't serve something more than yourself and not benefit, right? So it's not like you're sacrificing, the people that play that game. It's not a sacrifice. It's like philanthropy. I hear people talk about, philanthropy, a friend of mine the other day was on an airplane and somebody was reading, I saw my book, it triggered me, it was Life Force. And the person was really into it. And he said, hey, he's known me for 45 years. And he says, what do you think of that book? Oh, it's incredible, the stem cells and this, you can't believe the breakthroughs. And I don't know why we didn't know about this and blah, blah, blah. What do you think of the author? Oh, he seems like a really good guy and he donated all the profits to feed people. And of course, he's totally rich. So I mean, it's easy when you're rich, right? And my buddy turns to him and he said, well, what if I told you that I knew him since he was 17 years old, 45 years ago? And that I remember when he had $20 to his name, there was a guy in the street and he gave him $10 and told me that the time to give is when you don't have it. And he said, and I watched him build that all the way up there. He taught me that if you don't give a dime out of a dollar, you're not going to give 100 million out of a billion, right? And it's like people look at things and they make their focus something like, oh, I'm sacrificing, or I'm going to do philanthropy because, I'm rich. No, you do philanthropy because it's a source of kindness and love. Philanthropy can be your attention. Philanthropy can be your time. Philanthropy can be a buck, $5. Philanthropy can be you're in line with people in Starbucks and I remember doing this research, I couldn't believe it. If you buy 5 people who you don't know their coffee, you get a biochemical change that has a more lasting impact than most things you could purchase for yourself, including large purchases. So it's intelligent selfishness is the truth. You can't possibly do good and not feel good. When you want some self-esteem, do something worthwhile beyond just yourself.